Libertarian CounterPoint panel discussion. We have a wonderful lady to the side here, Catherine Duran, a loving mother, homeschooler, and crusader for liberty of the people. And on the other side here, we have Mr. Arthur Ringwalt, educator, libertarian crusader also, constitutional scholar, and all-around good man. So my name is Mike Giles. I'm an awakened California Democrat looking in other directions, and a crusader for liberty also. Now, before we actually start, there's a hope for a better future with the Students for Liberty and Young Americans for Liberty having their big annual convention in Washington, D.C. coming up. And the students, the European Students for Liberty, having their big confab in Prague. Hopefully this information is up there for you to see. So now we have the wonderful folks right here. We'll try to illuminate and educate and inform the best we can. Some of the questions kind of revolve around the California water fix, so to speak. There's a giant thing going on in the Delta. There's going to be a huge impact, the destruction of hundreds of farms, the altering of the Delta, and the hauling of billions of gallons of water away to be sent to the south, and ocean water coming up all the way up to pretty much to Franklin. And there's all kinds of things that have gone on kind of behind closed doors that allow this to happen. And the people of the Delta have been putting up a fight, but they've been facing the same battle that the education people have been fighting in Common Core, or the people battling other government intrusions and incursions in the modern world, where the government has so much more power than it did in the revolutionary times. So anyway, I would just like to open the floor to whoever would like to throw in.
What do you think about that water fix, Mike?
Well, what really shocks me is that it's happening all behind closed doors. I mean, it's not. I mean, the rules are made kind of in the hallways of the legislature or something like that, and then they figure out what they're going to do, and then they just go in and vote it or something.
Who owns the water? Who owns water in California?
Well, I own my water.
You own your water. Okay, who owns the water in the Sacramento River? Who owns the water in the American River? It's a big problem, and we don't know who owns it.
That's right. Well,
because we don't own it. It has no owner. Who owns the water in the oceans? For the fish? Who owns it?
Well, no one owns the
no one
owns the oceans.
Well, maybe,
but the people of the state of California own the water that's in California.
It's the state of California, so that's one reason why I think it gets abused, because nobody owns it, and so everybody owns it.
That's right.
Well,
so then they got a problem of this is called socialism by von Mises. Your name will come up tonight. Ludwig von Mises, famous economist, who It's influencing a lot of people thinking today about human action, or economic classic. And he says the problem is there's no price mechanism under socialism, and that includes owning water. Nobody can figure out what water is worth because everybody owns it, and there's no way to price water resources.
Well, when the first people started coming into California, the Indians had to live on the water that came from the sky, and the Spanish probably built small little dams and things like that. But when the Europeans started arriving, they realized, just as they did through the Midwest and just as they did in old Europe, if you want water that's going to stay there, you're going to have to build a dam. The beavers do a perfect job of showing us how to build dams.
Right.
And so they did, through time, built more and more, and we're holding the water in place. And then sometime a bunch of people started resisting that, kind of in the 60s and 70s, and by the 90s, they completely stopped building any dams, but the population keeps growing.
Right.
And
right. And now we have an even more devastating issue, which is the destruction of dams in California. We have a setup, I believe, for a demolition of 11.
Why did they want to demolish the dams?
Well,
there's a valid reason for that.
Yeah, that is all. It's unsustainable. Essentially, it is all unsustainable. This is an effort by the United Nations. This is the United Nations Agenda 21, now actually 2030 Agenda, and California is the poster child for we have a governor that is hell bent on seeing Agenda 21 to complete fruition, and the original timeline for that was 2050. And I think that there's a combination of possibly it's been going so well. One of the things is that it's bypassed the consciousness of the people, for one thing, and the understanding of the people. And in addition to that, I think in a way, it actually they see an opportunity there, and they can see that things are going easy as far as that's concerned. But I think that they may be frustrated with that 2050 timeline, and so they just recently, in the last couple of months, we had just had another UN summit, and then when the Pope was here in September, October, and this is where they rolled back that 2050 timeline and actually pushed it ahead to 2030. And one of the things that it calls for is to eliminate those things that are unsustainable. So we have all kinds of things that are unsustainable, but one of those is these dams.
In other words,
it's not natural, and we have to return the land back to its natural state.
So when you're saying unsustainable, you're being a little bit ironic.
That's actually their terms.
Yeah, they use
their
that.
terms. Right.
But to buttress your point, I was told about this one by a friend of mine, and then I met her about a year later, and this has been a few years ago now, not just recently. Mm-hmm. She's a woman who strayed off a trail in a forest and was confronted by a forest ranger. Said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Hey, I'm an American. This is the federal forest. I'm in a park." And he said, "Get off this trail and get back over there." And she said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he pulled his pistol out and marched her down onto that trail, past all the people that were on the trail, and marched her right down to the main station.
Did you point a gun at the person?
Yeah,
You're not supposed to do that.
Well,
it's a felony.
He did. And so they have this idea that they don't want people in certain places.
That's right.
And they intend to, I mean, they have all kinds of ideas, like maybe putting people in big gray 10-story apartment buildings along Watt Avenue. As you can
Right.
see, you know.
It's on the transit lines, so they have these transit communities. So that's one of the plans, one of the many plans. It was a complete change. I'm familiar with Agenda 21. It's a complete changeover from, private property. That's one of the things too, is an abolition of private property, and so these are large McMansions, that type of thing. Those single-family homes on large acreage is not sustainable. And so,
According to them.
for population, for our populations, the goal is to actually get people out of the rural districts and out of the suburbs and into the cities on the transit lines. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have a clear understanding of what the whole bullet train is, the train to nowhere.
Whatever happened?
And that's one of this is one of them.
Whatever happened to property rights? The Fifth Amendment and the founding fathers were very much in favor of property rights.
Well,
right.
I don't think that. I think these people are going to say it's a living document, and that's too old-fashioned, and we're moving.
That's
in.
what it is, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is just from the little bit of talking that I've listened to and heard. But I mean, they want to reimpose, and this is my interpretation from what I have read, resurrect the empires, potentates, kingdoms of ancient times, and reintroduce things like the Ottoman Empire, the Roman Empire, except it'll be their empire.
It's that type of construct, yeah.
And they intend, they've learned through behavioral science in the universities and academia how to introduce these things slowly and carefully through the media to the people. So they're so busy watching the Kardashians or something that they're not really paying attention.
That's very true.
And so and that's why I really appreciate both of you, because you're both awakening and awakened Americans who are becoming, more and more people are becoming aware.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, we are becoming aware. That's one of the reasons why we have the I guess phenomenon of Donald Trump, where he's speaking a language that people are not accustomed to hearing from so-called politicians, and he says he can't be bought. I don't know about that. I think everyone has their price. But we're in a time now where we have the people that we have. It's in our DNA as Americans. It's in our DNA. I say sort of figuratively. That we have an understanding, whether it's written down or whether we know it in our core, we know it because we've learned it to be true, but we have an understanding of what justice is and what liberty is. And so he's speaking that language. I am not, I just want to say, I actually am not endorsing anyone for president. I'm not really happy with anyone, because I'm looking for someone who's constitutionally literate and committed to to upholding, committed to living up to and upholding the oath that they swear when they take office at every level. So I'm not. I just want to expand a little bit and say that I'm not actually endorsing anyone for president when I say Donald Trump. But I think it's just because we're speaking the language. He's speaking the language of liberty and being. He's stepping outside of the box.
He's unafraid to say things that the politically correct people don't want him to say.
And hopefully, we're getting people to. He is getting people to. Also step outside of the box, but get informed. Be informed. Inform yourselves. Inform ourselves. We need to inform ourselves. And I'm not saying, get informed, have somebody inform you. I'm saying we need to inform ourselves and continue to inform ourselves about what's going on.
It's difficult. The best way to inform yourselves is your internet. I'm afraid you can't use a local newspaper hardly at all. So probably the best way is to go to the internet, and we can.
Oh yeah, I agree.
By far, My biggest news source is the internet. Even, I hate to say it, I'm going to talk about Facebook. You learn a lot more from Facebook than you learn from the Sacramento Bee, and I'm serious, I do.
Well,
I'm not speaking for those two.
I agree with what you're saying, only because actually back when I was still a dyed-in-the-wool California Democrat, I guess I can call myself at that time, I would call in to the Bee, say, hey, you know, this story is missing a bunch of the parts that you need to say because it's incomplete, and it's just leaving a false impression just by lack of information. What do you call it? Editorializing by omission. And boy, I got hung up on, condescended to, sworn at, and hung up on. Not just once, not just twice. And I really, what is going on here? And so once you start listening very carefully, I didn't watch TV for a while, but I started watching it again more on Sunday mornings, and listening carefully to the language, the choice of words used by the news commentators. You can see how editorializing is going on subtextually by leaving out big punches of information and then adding little negative jabs here and there.
Sure.
Or by a lower tone of voice, and you mention a certain person or something like that, and you can just see how it's just a very slow and careful programming that's going on over the TV sets on something that we used to call the news.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely. That's the adults delivery system. That's a delivery system for adults, I should say. Yeah, absolutely. We have a crazy complicit media that will not report the truth, will not report the important things, and will
Report trivia.
Oh, yeah.
and then hone in on the hot button items. So there's a shooting,
Oh, shooting! That's shooting. That's a big thing to report. That's right. It doesn't matter. I mean, you don't never report about how many people get killed by bombings in Syria and Iraq, but you hear about shooting of. They say a lot about shooting of 14 people in San Bernardino.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's a city in northern England. I don't think I can recall the exact name, Rockford or something like that. That's not really the name, but they went 16 years of having girls being kind of abducted and.
I heard about that. I can't remember its name. I couldn't recognize the name, but I did read about that.
Yeah, so the media didn't ever report it because it was politically incorrect. It was politically incorrect to describe that a certain group of people, criminals, whether they're criminals or not, were abducting and raping their high school girls because it just was okay, I guess.
There's too much political power at stake. It's like a can of, not just a can of worms, but a giant can of worms, right?
Yeah. So the media plays a gigantic role in the subtextual imbecilization.
But that's a news media, the established news media. But you can get a lot of very good websites. If you Google enough, you get websites about find out really what's going on. But you have to over the internet, and after a while, you get the websites that you enjoy following. And I'm afraid to say hardly none of these come from the media.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. The internet is an amazing
wonderful,
tool,
yes.
and it helps you not only to inform yourself, but it is an ongoing education, and you start to learn. It's not really an art, but a science of can decipher what's true and what's not true. You have the science of discernment.
Right.
What's true and what's not true, what's accurate and what's not accurate, and boy, it's not just. Oftentimes, you find that it's not just in the vernacular or the the number of typos, but you can actually feel the tone of the writer if they're political, whatever their political bent, and even and that is really makes it apparent that.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, what you're saying is like I've discovered British newspapers, the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, and if you want to hear about travesties and horrors at the Tex-Mex border, you have to go to the Daily Mail, and they'll have 100 pictures, maybe. Well, it seems like 100. It's probably just 30, and tremendous detail about finding just horrific things along there. But you never find that anywhere on NBC, ABC, CBS, or CNN, or NPR, or anything like that. Right. And to buttress what you're saying also, actually there was a story that was real interesting. It was on NPR, and they had literally blocked or deleted, or whatever you call it, 30% of all the commentary, because it wasn't politically correct. So
right,
it wouldn't let people speak.
Right. That's kind of where I was going.
The British press seems to be a little bit better than the American press. Like Daily Telegraph is another one.
Yeah, the Telegraph. However, I did notice that in the French, which is totally state-controlled, more so than BBC, I think, they had their main weather guy that had been their, weather scientist, meteorologist, and he wrote a book saying that all this stuff about global warming wasn't true.
Good for him.
And then they instantly fired him.
Well, he probably get a job somewhere else.
Yeah,
they threw him right out because he'd been there for 20 years or something like that. So there's politically correct manipulation of the news going on.
That's kind of where I was going. That it makes it very apparent what a political bent that the media has. That it is so far off from what the majority of people believe and want, but we're buying it. We in masses. Unfortunately, I think that I don't know if it's the best. It's hard to say which is the best, but we have one supposedly fair and balanced news show or news station that is supposed. I mean, apparently it's the best. It's the best that you can get on television, and they're even horribly misleading this country. So the internet is great when you can get a full education on the internet, and a lot of times I think better, and I've heard other people say much smarter than I am, that they can get a better education just on the internet than they got on the university. And I'm not advocating that either, but self-guided education can be found on the internet.
Well, I don't know why they keep doing this, because Sacramento Bee is losing money. Everybody knows that. Well, I think the New York Times, is losing money, but they keep doing this. I don't know why. Well, beside the point, but just curious. I mean,
the hatred that I felt, I could almost feel the tight lips around their angry teeth when some of these editors, not just one and not just two and not just three B editors, and not limited to just the B. I'm thinking of Channel 13 and stuff too. You could feel the hatred coming over the phone line, into your ear.
I think that was
it's amazing.
That was one poll taken of journalists. I believe that 95% were Democrats and 5% were Republicans, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to inform the people. That's what the Fourth Estate was all about, is to inform the people.
How they feel about me.
But I don't know. I just feel you have to just search for news wherever you can find it, and there's just tons of it around, like you say. But
the internet gets a lot of sponsors, so they do get sponsors. Some of these shows, such as Infowars.com,
oh yeah,
but they get sponsors.
Well, some of that stuff. I mean, you take a little bit of all of it and put it together. because I wouldn't want to just stick with one and say that's the one or
Right.
anything. But informing the people is the critical, important thing that the media is supposed to do. And in my opinion, it's kind of en masse not doing it. And they're leaning
Absolutely.
very much in one political
But
direction.
the Drudge Report gets a lot of sponsors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but even they, I mean,
Advertising.
when you have, I mean, the media is not just ABC, NBC, and CBS, CNN, MSNBC, PBS, and all that. It's also Variety, New York Times, LA Times, Women's Day,
Right.
Playboy, and all the editors on all these places.
That's right.
If you look around,
That's right.
you'll see that they're very, very leaning to the left and very good at character assassination.
And it's not because I'm not a right or left person, but but it seems to be far left. And what we consider middle of the road now is actually right in the middle of the road. I think over the years, what we would have considered middle of the road now is falling off the cliff, and the far left is way off,
Oh yeah,
way off the cliff.
JFK
So-
would be just thrown off the stage.
He'd
if
be
he showed
considered a
up again.
conservative
Yeah.
by
I don't
today's
think I've
standards.
had much training, particularly economics. Austrian school economics, developed mostly by Karl Menger and by others, including Ludwig von Mises and von Hayek and the others. You know, that's the kind of economics we've been trying to follow. You can't get that in the universities either, and you don't get that coverage in the media.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, that's certainly true, and I just want you to know how nice it's been to have these two really great people here to exchange our views and to learn a little bit about the name Hayek. Get these names out a little bit for people because it's really refreshing to me. To be able to hear the intellectual powerhouses that are out there in the common world that aren't some sort of elevated academia high place. And so you
It's
guys
been
are great.
It's been great. Thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you so much. And
Thanks so much.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this august discussion.
Yeah. Thank you
Yes.
so much for having me.
And I think we all want to thank the Libertarian Party of County of Sacramento for letting
Absolutely.
us on, because they stand for letting people speak